Good evening, everybody. Sunday night. I know you're at home just relaxing, and we are here for another live interview with a comic creator so that you can get to know more about her, about the work, and about the new comic that just hit shelves last week and that we, of course, have on the shelf for you to check out. So welcome to Karla Nappi. Thank you for joining us tonight and to talk about you and your book.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great to get to talk to you for a little bit here because I had already ordered the book through previews, but you did the extra mile, which I always love because there's such a connection between the comic fans and the comic creators. You reached out to us individually to talk about your book and to promote it, and that's when we got to talking, and we wanted to get you on here to talk about Duplicant, which we will talk about after we get to know a little bit more about you, because that clearly is the reason we're here. But why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself? Let me prod it. When did your interest in comic books become something that you wanted to do?
My interest in comic books became something I wanted to do pretty late in life. I would say I was into my 30s already by the time I got into comic books. I had a friend who kept pushing me to go to comic conventions, and she ended up being on a panel at WonderCon, and so I went with her to that, and that was my first comic convention. And it also turned out another friend was there too, because he had a book that had just been released by IDW. So it was like those two things happened, and when I walked into the convention for the first time, I was like, I just felt at home. Like it just felt like a place I had always been meant to be at, and I just fell in love with being there at the conventions. And then I started to just meet all these indie book creators. So my friend who had a book come out, Boy One, he kind of introduced me to a bunch of creators at that show. And then because I just started going to the shows, I started to meet more creators. And then when I decided to adapt Duplicate, which was the original title of my pilot script, I took a class at Motel Comics in West Hollywood to learn how to write comic books. And that's when I really got involved in the field and started to just fall in love with this form of writing.
So then let me ask you this, because I think it's great that you came into comics later than a lot of people, because there's always an entry point. Everyone has their first comic that they read. But what was it about the con itself? Was it just the community that made you want to get involved in this?
I would say it was definitely the community, because it felt like a very communal place to me. It felt like a place where everyone was accepted, no matter who you were or what you were like. You were just accepted. And then, you know, the costumes, like I just thought that was great. And I don't know, it felt like everything that I loved in life in one place.
Then that's fair. The community in the comic book world is just absolutely fantastic. The relationship that the creators like you have with the fan base, it's just something really special. I mean, this is a community where we get to come and we get to talk to you. We get to meet the creators. You don't necessarily get that to the degree that you do in this industry and others. And speaking of that, you have worked in other industries. You've been a writer for a while.
Yeah, I worked in film and TV. I started in film and TV in high school, actually. I was in the media TV program in high school. I still keep in touch with my two teachers from that program, actually. And when I was like really little, I thought I was going to be an actor. I thought I was going to be a stand-up comedian. So like, I feel like I was always going to be in the entertainment field in some way, shape, or form. And then, yeah, I worked on both coasts. I worked in New York and LA on film and TV shows. I have a couple of credits in TV, and I'm still actually trying to break in as a writer in TV too. But comics is at this point my one true love and my passion and my focus. And the TV stuff is I'm also working on, but it's not as much of my day to day.
Okay, so you've made the transition to try and really put your efforts into the comic book world as opposed to the TV. But what kind of stuff have you done in the television world?
As far as where I've worked, or as far as what I've written?
What you've written, or both.
Oh, okay. So my two credits are with the television show Suits. I did episode 206 called All In, and I also did a webisode that they did called Mini Mike. and I was their script coordinator. I met Ehrin on his pilot in New York, and we just hit it off. And so when the show went to start filming in LA, he invited me to come out to LA to work as his script coordinator. And that's what moved me there for almost a decade. I was there working on shows like The Good Wife and BrainDead, Bates Motel. I worked on a number of different shows, and I did, on some of them I did, at the time, it was a big thing to do like blogs of the characters, like each character doing a sort of blog post. So I wrote stuff for that, for like Rubicon and Bates Motel, and I want to say one other, The Messengers. Nice. I did blog posts for, and then in New York, I worked on things like Michael Clayton and Definitely Maybe, and Rescue Me was like my first real big job on a TV show. So.
Okay, so you've done quite a bit of different things, and how hard is that? Is it like a constant hustle? I'm always curious about the behind the scenes stuff. Is it as much of who you know? I mean, how does it work?
Well, it was weird when I did it in New York, because usually your script coordinator, which was what my main job was, you're kind of like the copy editor for the writers. You're with the writers. But in New York, when I did it, I was where the show was filming, but I wasn't necessarily where the writers were. So like Rescue Me only had 3 writers, essentially. It was Peter Tolan, Dennis Leary, and Evan Riley, and they were pretty much on set. Peter was in LA a lot of the times, but even when he was in New York, he was on set. So like I never was with them, because their room was basically Dennis's trailer on set. Okay. And then the other shows I did all had their rooms in LA, so I was working with them remotely. So when I moved to LA for Suits, it was a completely different experience to actually be with my writers and getting to be in an actual writer's room. And that actually gave me more access and a better sense of like how everything works, because when I was in New York, I was just getting things fed to me by email to take care of, and I wasn't actually getting to interact with the writers as much, being able to develop those relationships as well.
Okay, nope, that's fair. But now you've got the relationships, and you've got the relationships in the comic community evidently as well, because you got introduced to some people along the way, which is great. Then let's go into Duplicant. Here's the book that you should be looking for on the shelves. I'll show you a picture, but we've got a better picture to put up on the screen for you too. But this is the one that right there is what you're going to want to be looking for on the shelf. Number 1 hit last a week and a half ago, and your comic shop should have it. If your comic shop does not have it, whether they've sold out, and they let them know, because they can probably get you some more copies, fingers crossed, or possibly a second printing will be coming. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of Duplicant before we tell them what it's about?
Yeah, so Duplicant first came to me when I was working on Suits. It was a pitch idea originally, and then I developed it into an actual pilot script to use as a writing sample to hopefully get me staffed. And I was reading all these articles at the time about 3D printing and how it was going to be used to do actual organs. And then also, I had always been enamored of the movies Repo the Genetic Opera and Minority Report and like Blade Runner, all those sorts of like sci-fi movies. And so I always wanted to kind of do my own sci-fi sort of property. Before that, I had been trying to write more drama scripts, but then I was like, my true passion is really sci-fi. And so that's when I first started to do my real big sci-fi stuff. And yeah, it was interesting. Like in the back of this book, I actually wrote a little letter about what the process was for me and how the idea kind of morphed over time into what it became. And it was done, the original idea was done in 2013. So it's just been wild watching an actual pandemic happening. Because, when I wrote this, I was like, well, that's never going to happen again. I mean, the flu pandemic from the early 1900s was just a fluke. Little did I know that this was going to be coming out like right when we're in the middle of one. So it's just been a little eerie and also interesting to see how close some of what I wrote ended up being to the reality that we're in.
That's fair. We've got a few comments here. We got Al Noir's Comics and Collectibles. He said he just finished issue number 1. The Sith Lord says it's a very hard to find comic. He reads Second Sight, and this is the best title that he's read so far. So another gentleman, Mr. Rick Curtis, has said, what is your most memorable moment / experience that you can share? And I think we'll expand that to comics or television.
Okay. So I think the most memorable moment for me was it was such a fun moment. I got to go to set when they were filming my episode of Suits, and the pilot filmed in New York, but the show itself ended up filming in Toronto, Canada. So I was lucky enough to get to go to set, which doesn't usually happen when you're like the script coordinator and you get a freelance episode. So there was a scene, the B storyline, which was Meghan Markle's character and Rick Hoffman's character. They were fighting to save this ballet company, and there's a moment when Rick's character is like practicing ballet moves in the office, and he just wasn't getting them right. It was clear like he just didn't know ballet in real life, and I had taken ballet for years and years and years, and my sister was a professional ballerina, actually. She had studied in New York, and she was a professional ballerina in Missouri. So like I knew ballet. So I like went up to the director and I was just like, can I just show him some ballet moves that he might be able to just do to make this
something simple, but to get him through this.
Yeah. So I like went in and I showed him a couple of things that I thought were simple that he could get, and it just that moment.
Nice. Well, okay, let's get back to Duplicate because I got a little sidetracked. I apologize. Okay. So you were influenced by all these great things. And one of the things that I really liked that you mentioned here was Repo, the Genetic Opera, because that is one of my absolute favorites. That thing I can watch over and over again. In fact, I think my wife is kind of sick of it by now. But that's beside the point. So that being said, you put this together. Now you did a Kickstarter for the first two.
Yeah.
How did you bring it together to get to the Kickstarter? Because you're the writer, but you're not doing the coloring, the lettering, any of that kind of stuff. So what was your process so that people who don't know might be able to take something from this?
So hold on, I'm getting a little bit of an echo. Let me just plug in my headset. Okay. Issue 1 was workshop at Meltdown Comics, and one of the writers that I met during my time there was Rylan Grant. He's done Banjax, the series Aberrant. He just finished a Kickstarter for his series The Jump, and he's also done the Peacekeepers. And so he and I have remained friends since then. And when I was looking for an artist, he actually hooked me up with Mariana. He knew this guy in Poland named Carol who like knew all these great artists that were up and comers, and he's the one that hooked me up with Mariana. I had Mariana do a test page first, which was to me the pivotal scene in issue 1, and she just nailed it. And so I was like, okay, this is great, because my book isn't super action heavy, and I needed someone who could really do the emotional aspect of the character's faces and body language, and she just was really able to get that. And then my letter artist came by way of my editor. So Vince Hernandez, I ambushed him after a panel at Long Beach Comic-Con. And at the time, I just had a script, and he's like the editor-in-chief of Aspen. Like, he didn't have to give me the time of day, and I don't even know what the heck I said to him that got him to actually stop and take me seriously. And he read the script and he gave me notes. His most important part that he helped with, other than just being like a voice for me to bounce stuff off of and help me learn the process of everything, was telling me to add humor to the book, because I had no humor in this book before he read it. And I feel like the humor has been one of those pivotal things that have helped keep the book feel more grounded in reality and not be so dark. Because that was the thing. He was like, this is too dark if you don't have some humor in it. You need some humor in it. So Josh was one of the letter artists at Aspen. And so Josh did the lettering for me, and he did the logo. And then my cover artists, Layla and Owen, came by way of my friend Himkar. So Himkar had Layla do a cover for him on Boy One. And so he introduced me to her, and she was generous enough to come on. And she's done all my covers. Her and Owen do all the covers for the book. And
the covers are beautiful. The covers, they really stand out on the shelf. Just that the background mixed with the flesh, and then of course the organs. We talked about how it came about, the Kickstarter. Why don't we tell them what it's about?
So the quick log line is it's set in the future during a pandemic of organ failure, and it focuses on the scientist who becomes a victim of his own technology. The more, in-depth is, so we're in this pandemic, your organs fail. The way you get a new organ is this company Regenerist prints you a new organ because human organs are illegal. But the printed organs are so expensive that you end up being sold off into indentured servitude. You're basically auctioned off to the highest bidder. And so our person that kind of leads us into this world and helps us understand how the world works is Pamela. Her lungs fail and she gets auctioned off, and she's facing this life that she never thought she would have to live. And she seeks out Matt Travers, who's the person that created the duplicate organs, to ask for his help.
Okay, and that's where we kick off. And there are, you did three successful Kickstarters.
Yeah.
So you've already got the first Kickstarter did issue 1 and 2.
Issue 1 and 2, yep.
Second one did 3, and the third one did 4. So these are already in the bag, guys. This is one of the things that's nice about this too, is that issue 1 is on the wall. You don't have to worry about not having anything come afterwards or it not being completed, because there's 4 issues already done, and you're working on the 5th as we speak, correct?
Yeah, I was actually working on it today, trying to get it done so I can get it to Mariana.
Sweet. So now, how often are the first 4 going to come out?
So it's on a bi-monthly release. So issue 2, I think, just finished being in previews for pre-order, so it'll be out in June. And then issue 3 will be out in August. And then I think there's like a month break. And then issue 4 is, I want to say, October, and issue 5 is January, I believe. That's
perfect. It's nice that at least we know when they're coming out. So time around it. That's very important to both readers and comic book stores. So we appreciate that. And you are going through Second Sight Publishing, which, as you guys out there might know, has been getting some attention lately. There's been a lot of books they've been putting out, number ones, trying new things. And the indie market right now is just through the roof. And it's great because we all love our Batman. We love our Spider-Man. But as much as I love Pete, there's a lot of repeat. So in the indie market, it's great to check these things out because they're stories that you're not going to get anywhere else. They're stories that writers aren't necessarily hampered by major events going on in the universe. And so that's why it's really important. And especially because these are passion projects. I mean, you love the industry and you love what you're putting out. So you definitely want to check these guys out and support them. Now, getting this going, there are a lot of people who always come into the shop and talk to me about wanting to create a story. They've got an idea. Is there any piece of advice or something that you found to be particularly important that you might be able to pass on to them?
The most important thing for me, there's 2 things. First is you want to just study the medium you're going to be writing for. You read as many comic books as you can, but also, and I think these are a little bit harder to come by in the comic world and then the TV world, is the scripts themselves, because that was like a big mystery to me. My job in film and TV was doing nothing but reading and formatting scripts, so I knew that like the back of my hand. But as far as like comic books, I had trouble finding the format for them, and there doesn't seem to be like a set format, which isn't necessarily a problem, but I'd say getting as many copies of the script as you can and then seeing the script against like what actually was put on the page and how it came to life is important. And when, I guess a lot of the panels now are virtual, so it doesn't matter if the conventions are in person or not with the panels, but the other thing I did that I thought was really helpful is I went to as many panels as I could about how comics are actually made, like what the letterer does, what the colorist does, what the inker does, what the penciler does, what your editor does, like all those people. You need to really understand what they do to help your book and to help you get it to be the best thing that you want it to be.
So essentially it boils down to do your homework.
Yeah, pretty much. Do your homework.
And we got and Rick Curtis asked me to put the first issue in his saver. I will definitely do that. Dawn says Duplicate is such a great story. So we've got people who have read it, people who have picked it up. So no, that is absolutely fantastic. So no, I really appreciate you spending a little bit, because the interesting thing that you mentioned there that is true is comic scripts, every single one I read is different.
Yeah.
In the format, like you as long as you've got the page, the description of the panel, the wording, but there's not like a standard.
No, it's wild to me because, in film and TV, it's like a very strict standard you have to meet.
Yeah. So again, it's everybody out there who wants to do something like this, try and pull some up. You can probably find some on the web. There are books on the shelf or trades most likely that have some that you can take a peek at just to get an idea. But given that there isn't a medium standard, just start writing. Get something to the page, please. Get your idea out there, and you happen to be able to meet people at workshops, which was really nice, at Meltdown, which was great.
Yeah.
So a good substitute for something like that, if people don't have it in their area, would be cons once they're back.
Yeah, well, and I met a lot of people this year through my Kickstarters. That was like a great building ground for building new relationships and new friendships, was all the Kickstarters I ran, and we do a lot of cross promotions with other campaigns. So that's been nice to have that sort of community continuing even without the conventions right now.
That is very nice. Now, do you have any plans of doing another Kickstarter, or are we going to see you just through Second Sight?
So there'll be one more Kickstarter for issue 5, probably, I would say, in this late summer, early fall. And that'll be it for a little while until my kids' book is done. And then I'll do a Kickstarter for my kids' book that I'm working on. That's
perfect. Well, please keep me in mind. Let me know when it's up, because we'd be happy to share it and let people know to go support it. Most definitely. Now, where can they find you online?
So Musings by Crazed, which is up on the screen, is where I'm at on Instagram and Twitter. And then my website is basically my name, karlanappi.com. And then Facebook has a page that I set up for the comic itself, which is facebook.com/duplicant comic.
Okay, that's easy enough. And evidently you don't have a problem getting the word out there, because we got somebody who said you're great with social media. That's why they're here, because they were following you and enjoyed the comic book. So that is perfect. Yeah, no, please go follow her. Take a peek. I imagine that this is what's going to be the focus for you for a while. But do you have anything else that you've possibly talked about or want to work on, or is that just too far in the future?
I don't know if you saw, there's a post that posted connected a few weeks ago about the Visible Women hashtag that she helps run. So she announced that this year they were doing it in conjunction with a company called Brink Literacy that does a quarterly anthology called Friction. And so for their unseen issue, they're having it's going to be drawn mainly by visible women. And so I'm one of the writers that's going to have a comic story in that issue. So I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping, we're still in discussions about it, but there's an artist that I'm really excited about who did my short comic, The Hotel, that I'm hoping is going to be the artist for the unseen issue, but it's still, all that's still being worked out. So I'm not sure who the artist is going to be yet, but The Hotel is actually up on Gumroad right now. I'm putting all proceeds towards charity. And then I'm working on an animated series with Sapphire Sandalo that's set in the Philippines called Nabarang. And then I have another comic project that I want to get into once I'm past Duplicant, that's set in the world of virtual reality.
Okay. All right. So you've got a bunch planned. We're just going to have to wait for it all to come together here. We had something else pop up on the screen while you were talking. What's the children's book about?
Oh, so the children's book is called Petal the Timid Inventor. I just actually hired an editor to help me make it the strongest it can be. And the artist on that is Mariah Terry. She's done a bunch of fan art for me on Duplicant and some trading cards that I haven't put out yet. But so it's about a shy pangolin inventor who lives on an island all by herself, and she's never made any friends. And so when these 3 other endangered animals move to her island, she has to figure out a way to make friends with them and still be respectful of the fact that she's shy. So it's teaching kids to be like, there's nothing wrong with being shy, and you just have to find a way that works for you, and hopefully people are accepting of it. And that's what I did with the other endangered characters. I have them be like aware of the fact that she's shy and be like, it's okay, and try to work with her in a way that makes her comfortable.
Okay. All right. So more then in a Kickstarter will be out for that too.
Yeah.
That is great. Everybody do not forget, please. Duplicant is out right now. Issue 2 came out a week and a half ago, so you can find it at your local comic shop. You don't have to just get it at Empire's Comics, though we do have it on the wall right now. Go to your shop, ask them about it. If they don't have it, ask them to reorder it for you, because then you can get it in your hands. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm looking forward to the rest of the issues and the other projects that you have coming for us. And I only have one more question. We saved the most important question for the end of the night, because it really will tell a lot about you and your character as a human being.
Okay. No pressure.
No pressure at all. No pressure. Do you prefer traditional or soft serve ice cream?
If it's Mr. Softy, I prefer the soft ice cream with the swirl, the chocolate and vanilla swirl.
Okay, you know, it's all right. I mean, that was wrong, but it's all it's all right. Thank you again for joining us. That was really nice to talk to you. Thank you to everybody who's watching and everybody who left comments. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of you in the time that we had, but pick up the book, follow her on social media, and keep your eye on the Kickstarters. You can go over to the Duplicate Kickstarter right now and follow her so you'll know what's coming up. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Oh, wow.